Hello all, I welcome you all for today's session, which is Introduction to C Programming. In this session, today we are going to cover C preprocessor and first programming in C. Before going for today's session, we will see that what we have covered in the last lecture. In the last lecture, we have covered the various data types in C programming, inside which we have covered the fundamental data types, derived data types, and user-defined data types. In the fundamental data types, we have seen the integer type, float and double type, character type, and void data type. In addition to this, we have also seen the input-output function and example of input-output function. Objective of today's session is to learn the importance of preprocessor in C programming, and the learning outcome to write or build first programming in C. In today's session, we will discuss about the C preprocessor. Preprocessor in C is not a part of the compilation process, but done just before the compilation. And let's take an example. Suppose if you want to go somewhere, like you want to go to your college. So going to your college is a part of your processing, whereas picking up the keys of bike, turning on the ignition, and sitting on the bike is a part of preprocessing. So this is just an example of preprocessing. Here we are going to discuss many more concepts of the preprocessors in C. Also, at the end of this session, we will write our first C program. Now, what is preprocessor? Preprocessor programs provide preprocessor directives which tells the compiler to pre-process the source code before compiling. In a C programming, once we write our code and then we want to execute, right? So while executing the code, it's not directly get converted into the machine code or executable code. There are some steps, intermediate steps involved in this while executing this code. First one, that is pre-processing. Second one, the compilation. And the third one is linking. Whatever the source code written by programmers is stored in the file that we are referring it as a program.c. This file is then pre-processed by the preprocessor. If there is any availability of the preprocessor directives like hash include, hash define, hash ifdef. So this preprocessor directives expanded the source code file, then all that code which stored inside the preprocessor is get added into a code before going to the compiler. Now this expanded file is compiled by the compiler and an object code is generated named as a program.obj. And last, finally, the linker links this object code file to the object code of the library functions to generate the executable code. So preprocessor programs provides preprocessor directives, commands which tells the compiler to process the source code before compiling. All this preprocessor begin with a hash symbol. We will see the actual program ahead in this video, or you might have noticed in the previous program that we have added the preprocessor directive, that is hash include stdio.h in our program. Here hash is called as a preprocessor directive. This hash symbol indicates that whatever the statement start with hash is going to the preprocessor program, and preprocessor program will execute this statement first. Examples are given, that is hash include, hash define, and hash if def. There are four main types of preprocessor directives. First one, macros substitutions directives, which is also called as macros. Then file inclusion directive. Then conditional compilation, which is also called as compiler control directives, and other directives. In today's session, we will only cover the first two directives, that is macros and file inclusion. Now, if you define macro in the program, means we are defining the identifier with the predefined value in the program, which means we are defining the substitute to the identifier. Wherever this identifier comes in the program, it will be get replaced by its substitute value. Here we are having the example, that is of simple macro substitution. In this we have written hash define limit 5. In this example we can see that we have defined the value of the identifier. The identifier is over here is limit. So we have defined the value of this identifier is 5. And whenever this identifier used in the program, such that here in the loop this value limit is get replaced by the 5. This is called as macro substitution. Next type is file inclusion. Here there are two types. First one is header file or standard files. These files contains the definition of the predefined functions. Like if we are writing hash include stdio.h, then the printf, scanf functions we are use inside the function, main function, they are defined in this include stdio.h. This file must be included for working with these functions. Different functions are declared in different types or different header files. This is called as header files. Another category is the user defined files. When a program becomes very large, it is a good practice to divide it into the smaller files and include whenever it's needed. And this is what the example of that you have to write hash include and the path of the file name or the path of that small program. Next is the conditional compilation. In conditional compilation directives, these are the types of directives which helps to compile a specific portion of the program or to skip compilation of some specific part of the program based on some condition. And here are some examples. Similarly, we are having the other directives like undef directives, pragma directives, and so on. Now here we are having our first C program and the output of our first C program. The first line of the programs begin with slash, that is forward slash, followed with asterisk symbol, the comment followed with asterisk and hash symbol. So whatever the text written in this 2 is treated as a comments. This comment do not affect program while running because C compiler ignores the comments and programmers use these comments for the documentation of the program. Line 2, this is the directive to the C preprocessor. Here the lines begin with hash are called preprocessor directives and the specific line tells the preprocessor to include the content of the standard input-output header file, that is stdio.h, in the program while the programming is compiled. Line 3, that is void space main followed with left parenthesis and right parenthesis. This is the main function of the program, which is a part of every C program. C programs can have multiple functions, which are also called the building blocks. However, one of the functions should be a main. The code of the function is written between the curly braces, and in this program also the body of the function is enclosed with the braces in line 4 and line 6. Line 5 is printf and hello world written in between the two quotes and parentheses. This printf is a standard output functions which instruct the computer to print anything written between these two quotes. The entire line, including the printf, its arguments within the parenthesis, and the semicolon is called as a statement. Every statement must end with a semicolon. This is the output of our first C program, that is hello world. That is all about the first C program. And these are the various references we have used for today's session. In the next session, we will see the various decision making statement. In that, we will cover the if-else statement, switch statement and jump statement. That is all about the today's session. Have a great day. Thank you.